tonight's story comes from Volume 1 of New Orleans Ghosts, written by Victor C. Klein in 1991. The Beauregard-Keyes House. The Beauregard-Keyes House is a designated National Historic Place. During the day, its antique-laden rooms host throngs of tourists who come to visit the one-time residence of the Confederates General Pierre-Gustave Toutant Beauregard. The home is a cheerful, airy, historic enjoyment for those fortunate enough to be guided through its spacious interior by attractive, knowledgeable guides dressed in colorful period costumes. But rumors have circulated about a dark side to the grand old mansion. There are those who say that after the tourists and guides have left for the day, the house experiences a weird, unearthly transformation. The entire interior seems to fade into another time. The furniture and accoutrements melt into another dimension. A pervasive darkness descends on the rooms, transforming them into a world of shadows and shifting shapes. Suddenly, the room bursts to life with scenes conjured from hell. Men with mangled limbs and blown-away faces swirl in a confused dance of death. Horses and mules appear and are slaughtered by the grape shot and cannon. The pungent smell of blood and decay permeates the restless atmosphere. All around is the mindless violence of the battlefield. The ghostly spectacle is a moving panorama of the carnage and death of war. Abruptly, the maelstrom brewing in the elegant rooms, a diminutive figure appears clad in Confederate general's gray and gold uniform. As the specter of the old soldier moves through the phantom battlefield, he can be heard to groan one word: Shiloh. In order to understand the nature of this alleged haunting, it's necessary to know some of the facts concerning General Beauregard's life. The facts that concern us have to do with the role he played in that great American tragedy, the Civil War. The first shots that began the Civil War were fired upon Fort Sumter on the 12th of April, 1861, at the order of this Creole general. This act initiated a conflict that would consume the lives of over 500,000 American citizens. During the ensuing war years, Beauregard performed with skill, courage, and effectiveness. He was a dashing cavalry officer who was partly responsible for the stunning Confederate victory at Bull Run. It was here that almost 15,000 men lost their lives, and the Union almost lost the will to pursue the war. Almost a year to the day after Beauregard fired those fateful shots against Fort Sumter, the Battle of Shiloh raged. Confederate generals Johnston and Beauregard squared off against Union generals Grant and Buell. When the smoke cleared and the dust settled, approximately 25,000 men lay dead, and the Confederate army was in full retreat. Eventually, the war ended, and Beauregard returned to New Orleans. Part of his time in the Crescent City was spent in his home, which would later be called the Beauregard-Keyes House. Beauregard wrote books and dwelled upon a great American tragedy that began with his order to fire upon Fort Sumter. His actions changed the course of American history as dramatically as the Revolutionary War. It also began a conflict that left more Americans dead than all of the wars America's ever fought in combined. Perhaps it was the force of the knowledge which somehow projected life through the Napoleon in gray into the environment in which he once brooded and reflected. Nevertheless, the Beauregard-Keyes house is remarkable for its also alleged home of another family of ghosts. If the old legends and tales are to be believed, the building is a virtual ghost dormitory. In addition to the old Confederate general and his battle, it was also the scene of a bloody shootout whose violence still clings to the ancient walls. It has been reported that after the sun has set and the cares of the day slip into the velvety night, 4 dark, swarthy figures can be seen stealthily moving along the upper side rear galleries. The men are armed. They move with a purpose motivated by greed, vengeance, and murder. They creep with their backs to the wall, eyes gleaming with blood-red nimbus in the dim light. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by the loud report of powerful handguns. The dark figures fire back, and ghostly lead rends and rips ghostly flesh. Spectral bones are splintered and shattered. Blood spews against the pastel walls. Streams of crimson gush from open wounds to pour into the yard below. One, then two, then three men fall dead from the lethal exchange of shot. A fourth assassin, critically wounded, descends from the balcony on unseen wings. His face is the screaming mask of a rotting corpse. Once on the ground, he and his screams disappear into the vaporous darkness. Abruptly, all again is silence. The gallery, which but seconds before held the horror of death and mutilation, is without a trace of blood or bodies. The ghosts have vanished. The phantom gunfight traces its origins to the 1890s. During the turn of the 19th century, New Orleans experienced a wave of immigration by the Sicilians. The majority of these new arrivals were poor but hard-working good people. Unfortunately, amongst the good were also the evil. This time period saw the growth of several Sicilian crime organizations such as the Black Hand and the Mafia. These organizations were powerful, ruthless, and fearless. It's alleged that certain Mafia members were responsible for the brutal shotgun assassination of New Orleans Police Superintendent David C. Hennessy. Extortion, murder, and kidnapping were the stock in trade of these thugs. It came as no surprise that the family Corrado Giacona, a wealthy Sicilian wine merchant, should fall under the baleful eye of the Mafia. Giacona and his family were threatened with violence unless they pay $5,000 in protection money. Remember, this was the 1890s. Evidently, Mr. Giacona was not the type of man to knuckle under. He turned the old Beauregard mansion into a fortress. He barred the windows, installed heavy bolted doors. More importantly, he armed himself and his family with large-caliber revolvers and made sure they knew how to use them. Finally, after months of fear, the Mafia decided to make their move. One night in 1909, the Giacona family enjoyed their evening meal in the privacy of their fortress, and 4 cutthroats tried to gain entrance through the upstairs gallery. The alert Giaconas gave an armed response. After a pitched gun battle which splintered the doors and shattered glass, 3 of the mafiosi lay dead of multiple gunshot wounds. The 4th, critically wounded, escaped through a curtain of hot lead and even hotter Latin tempers. The Giaconas lived in relative peace until the early 1920s. Finally, the family moved and disappeared from history. The house was converted to a macaroni factory in 1925. At this time, many New Orleanians interested in preserving the historic structure formed the Beauregard Memorial Association. During those years before World War II, strange stories began to circulate about the property. Reports surfaced of neighbors and passers-by hearing the din of battle. Sabers were heard to clash. Men screamed and cursed. Musket fire shattered the still, humid air. Others saw the blasted, bleeding bodies of mafiosi toughs dripping blood from the upstairs gallery. Some saw blazing revolvers spewing fire and lead, but held by no earthly hands. It's worthwhile to note these hauntings took a long time to become manifest. Certainly strange and powerful emotions are associated with each individual who allegedly left a spectral signature on this grand house. But why did so much time pass between various events and the paranormal phenomena? What was the catalyst that prompted these events to occur? This is a question with no answer. The director of the Beauregard House, Alma H. Neal, said in a 1977 interview, "We do not know anything supernatural taking place here. In researching the story, I inquired of the tour guides about the hauntings. She shrugged off my inquiry and said that all the talk of specters and ghosts is just so many old wives' tales. The alleged ghosts follow a deterministic pattern. They don't seem to interact with humans who claim to see them. All of them surround figures who obviously experience great emotional stress. However, their existence is denied by those who should know. Are these ghosts real? Does a conspiracy of silence enshroud the truth? Those who can answer these questions probably never will."